So today we are going to conclude this month of celebrations with our keynote speaker, Dr. Laura Rendon. However, what we want to do first is invite our president of Merritt College, who is going to do a welcome, and then we will move on with our agenda. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Boy, this has been a very joyful month, thanks to the work of the Associated Student Body and the leadership of Dr. Chavez. And where's the leadership of the Associated Student Body? Will you please stand up? Come on. Come on. The work that our students have done this month and continue to demonstrate to us that they're here to engage, they're here to demonstrate their leadership potential and their interest in making a difference for our new students coming in, but also their path to making a difference in our future. So I was so pleased to see that the accumulation of all the work that they did this month and ended up with inviting a national renowned individual like Dr. Laura right now, Rendon. Her work is about social justice, okay? And what she has over many decades, and I will tell you, it takes a person with a passion to make a difference and understand how culture and issues within our society have an impact on our students, but also have an impact in our learning and our development. And that learning, I think, took her to a path of continuing education where she has been recognized nationally. She currently, and one of the things I have to comment on, that we like to see role models. Well, how many of you, all of you here are community college students, correct? You're attending? You're just looking at Dr. She was a community college student, so to a community college success. She received her associate's degree at San Antonio College in San Antonio, Texas, and she went on to get a bachelor's degree in English and journalism from the University of Houston, and again, a master's in guidance and counseling and psychology from Texas A&M. And then her doctorate degree, her PhD, is in higher ed administration from the University of Michigan. So again, that pathway of individuals that embrace the possibility of being able to do something different. And to see that in an individual that has broadened that scope far more than I'm sure she originally intended. We always set our path to make a difference locally, but that passion can take you even much further into your community and into the state and national. And that's what we're going to be able to hear today, is from Dr. Rendon, what valuable skills that she has learned, but she can convey. I want to acknowledge that Dr. Rendon has a current book, and I hope that you take interest. I think she's going to make some reference to it, but we also have some here available after the presentation today. But Dr. Rendon, I'd like to thank you and welcome you to Merritt College that is in the spirit of social justice, and we want to hear how you have embraced that in your career and in your learning for us. Thank you.
I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, who I met a number of years ago, and I utilized her theory in my dissertation also. Dr. Laura Rendon is a professor of higher education in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Texas in San Antonio. She is also the co-director of the Center for Research and Policy in Education. Sometimes I think we forget how important data and research is for us. We only represent a part of, we only receive a piece of the pie, and that data is so critical. Dr. Rendon is a native of Laredo, Texas. Dr. Rendon's passion is assisting students who, like her, grew up in poverty with hopes and dreams, but not knowing how to realize them. Rendon is credited with developing the theory of validation, which colleges and researchers have employed as a framework for working with and affirming low-income students. Further, she is an active scholar and a teaching and learning thought leader. Rendon developed a pedagogical framework called Senti Pensanti, Sensing and Thinking Pedagogy. This is what her book is about. That emphasizes intellectual, social, emotional, and spiritual student development along with social activism. She is one of the founders and former board chair of the National Council for Community and Education Partnerships in Washington, D.C., which focuses on providing access to college for low-income students. She has also served on the Board of Trustees for Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. Further, she has designated and coordinated the yearly Latino-Latina Student Success Institute for the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education. Without further ado, Dr. Laura Rendon.
It's a pleasure to be in California. As you know, I'm from Texas. But I love California. In fact, I lived in Long Beach for 6 years. So I'm part California. I'm especially pleased to see so many students. And I want to let you know that today's talk I'm dedicating for you, especially for the students, because my work is about you. My work is about helping more students like you to get into college, but not just to get in, but to graduate from college with a degree, with a certificate, and to have you be the next leaders of American society. So the work that I will be sharing today is the knowledge that I have gained from talking with students, from talking with my colleagues across the country, and I hope that this work will help you here at Merritt. I want to begin with a little bit about my story so that you know where I'm coming from when I talk. Because I'm up here and you think, oh, you know, she's got it made, she went to all these universities, she probably, you know, had everything given to her on a silver platter. But nothing could be further from the truth. What you see up there is a picture of a house, 517 Galveston in Laredo, Texas. How many of you know where Laredo is? Right on the US-Mexico border. And that's where I spent a lot of my young years. And living with my parents who separated when I was only 3 or 4 years old, and watching my mom help the family to survive on $12 to $15 a week. And sometimes not having enough food to put on the table. My house today is very different from this house. It's a beautiful home. And so I come to you as someone who is like you, many of you who have your own story, who grew up in poverty and who struggled to make ends meet, and who has a journey of going from the barrio to higher education. And I think that all of us have that potential, because if you're here at Merritt College, you've got something going for you. You could be anywhere else, but you're here. That means you want to learn, that means you have goals, that means that you want to get somewhere. And the faculty here want to help you to succeed. So I want to share with you some messages that I want to leave at Merritt College for you and for faculty and staff. How are we going to help Latinos and other underserved students? By underserved, I mean those that are not well represented in American society in terms of leadership positions, in terms of graduates from colleges and universities. How do we help students to succeed? My message is going to actually have 3 messages. I think we need to engage faculty and student affairs staff in validating and supporting students. And I'm going to talk more about each of these 3 messages. But my first message is Validate, validate, validate. And I especially give this message to faculty and counselors. Validate and support students. Very, very important. And I'll explain why. Second, I think we need to get away from deficit thinking. Get away from, oh, students don't learn, students don't care, students are lazy, we have to dumb down the curriculum. We need to get away from that and begin to believe that every single student can learn, that every single student has the capacity to be a leader, and that every single student deserves our assistance to help them to graduate from college. And the third message is that we need to engage in a better teaching and learning process for students. I've learned that students want to learn, but they want to learn in a classroom that excites them. They want to learn in a classroom that has meaning and purpose. They want to learn in a classroom where they can engage in the material at a deep level that has a deep meaning for them. And so how do we do this? So these are my three messages. Validate, work with student strengths, and improve teaching and learning. If we do these three things, we're on our way to helping more faculty be successful with students and more students to graduate from college. So let me begin with the importance of validation. There's a report that came out last year. It's the Gallup-Purdue Index report. It's called Great Jobs, Great Lives. And basically, they studied more than 30,000 students across the United States, more than 30,000 students. And they asked these students questions related to what had helped them to do well in their jobs, what had helped them to do well in their jobs, and secondly, what out of everything that they learned in college helped them to be better people, to help them to have a better well-being. And here are some of the key findings. If graduates had a professor who cared about them as a person, who made them excited about learning and encouraged them to pursue their dreams, their odds of being engaged at work more than doubled, as did their odds of thriving in their well-being. Second, if graduates had an internship or a job where they were able to apply what they were learning in the classroom, were actively involved in extracurricular activities and organizations, and worked on projects that took a semester or more to complete, their odds of being engaged at work also doubled. So basically, this is saying, this is the kind of teaching and learning that students felt really, really helped them. Internships, applying what they were knowing, not just learning stuff, but how do I apply this in real life? And active involvement on projects and extracurricular activities. Much that you saw today, I mean, these young people here, beautiful, music that they played. I can only imagine how engaged they are in student government and the affairs of Merritt College. Those experiences count as much as what is going on in the classroom. So validation, support, and deep learning matter. So let's do a little bit of a reflection activity right now. Think back to the time that you started to think about college, that very first time that you were like, okay, I'm wanting to get into college. Who was that person, in or out of college, who helped you the most and said, you can do this, I'll help you, here's some of my advice? I mean, whatever that person did. Think back to that time when you were first enrolling in college. We're able to turn a negative into a positive, and it's really what happened to me. There weren't too many people around motivating me and encouraging me, but you know what I thought? I said, I'm gonna get out of poverty. This is not gonna happen to me and my kids. I'm not gonna do that. And I did everything I could to get out of that situation. So I totally understand that. But there are validating agents. Imagine what I could have done if I had had somebody really strong there by my side, like some of you did. Those validating agents are very, very important. It can be a faculty member, it can be a counselor, it can be a brother, it could be a sister, it could be your child. It can be anyone that is there for you. If you have such a person, you are very, very, very fortunate. Very fortunate, okay? So validation is a process that is supportive, and we initiated, especially faculty in colleges and universities, and it fosters academic and personal development. There's academic validation and interpersonal validation. The Puente Project, and I know that we have one all across California, we have Puente in Texas. I'm a big fan of the Puente Project because basically much of what Puente does is it validates students. The original model was students were in an English classroom where they were helped with reading and writing and research. There was a counselor in that classroom to help the students develop an education plan. And there was a mentor, that validating agent that helped the student connect to the community and say, this isn't just about you graduating, it's about when you graduate, you're going to put something back into your community. All of these three people are validating agents in the Puente Project. So, examples of academic validation in an English classroom is, for example, employing an asset-based framework, affirming the possibility that students can learn. Because many students come to places like Merritt thinking, maybe I'm not that smart, or somebody told me that I couldn't learn, or I just made C's and D's in high school. Is college really for me? And so in projects such as Puente, they turn these ideas around and say, yes, you can learn. Yes, you have an opportunity here. Yes, we're going to help you. Yes, you can do this. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Yes, we can, as Obama said, right? It was like Cesar Chavez, sí se puede. The same chant of empowerment, the same chant of we can do this together. Okay? And so students can provide the validation to each other as well, and we need to provide opportunities for students to witness themselves as capable learners. Because sometimes students feel that they can't write, or their project is going to be torn apart. So in that first semester, if students have an opportunity to see that they got an A, if students have an opportunity to see themselves in the classroom giving a speech, if students have an opportunity to get really good feedback from the faculty members saying, wow, I really enjoyed this piece of writing. Those are the kinds of things that can take students over the top. Affirming personal voice, that students can initiate from a student's personal experience. In Puente, I'm very pleased to say that students can write about their communities. They can write about their mentors. They can write about their abuelita. They can write about something that happened to them. In addition to that, they can write about science and they can write about literature. So all of that is thrown in there, but that voice of the student becomes very important. And what Puente also does is it creates a familia learning atmosphere where students organize into families, familias, where they share their papers, they talk to each other and support each other and validate each other. So oftentimes people say, well, students shouldn't be helped that much. Students should just learn to pick themselves up and do it on their own. Why are we helping students? And what I'm talking about is not about coddling students. It's not about pampering. Actually, when I see students in Puente and in Trio and other programs, Upward Bound, I see strong students. Validated students are strong students. When we do this authentically, students begin to say, I can do this. I can learn. I'm excited about learning. I belong at Merritt. I can do this. This is the strengths. These are the strengths that students develop as a result of validation. So validation is the first message that I have. Validate, validate, validate. The second message is to work with student assets, to work with strengths. So let me explain a study that we did at the University of Texas, and we interviewed Latino students, and we wanted to find the positive and negative aspects of their college experience, what helped and what didn't help. And we wanted to identify what are the strengths that these students employ to become survivors and to move past obstacles. What are those strengths? So here's the upside of college for them. For them, they were excited about making new friends, about coming to college and saying, I'm going to learn some new things. This is really, really exciting. I'm going to get a new experience. So college going is really, really exciting for these students. But there's a downside to college, just like there's a downside to every transition. A transition is when you move from one experience to another. It's like you lose a job, you move to a new job. You leave high school, you go to college. You leave the military, you come to college. All of that involves a transition. You end a relationship, you start a new relationship. All of those are transitions, and all transitions have their ups and their downs. Maybe I'll connect you to this more by saying, sometimes when we get married or, we hook up with someone and, oh, we're so excited, this is a new person, I'm in love, this is the person I wanted to meet all my life. And 6 or 8 months later, you're like, well, I found these other things, and you know what I'm saying? So it's all part of that transition because nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. And college is not perfect. So some of the downside of college involve liminality, being in that in-between space, separation anxiety, moving away and relocating, and experiencing microaggressions. All of that creates un choque, a crash, a cultural collision. So this is me, this is Donald Trump wants to build a border. There's already a border along the US-Mexico border. This is close to Brownsville, Texas. And I said, I'm going to take a picture of it, and it's right in between. This is the liminal space, okay? A liminal space is an in-between space that you're neither here nor there, okay? So coming to college, you're leaving your family behind, or maybe your neighborhood behind, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm in this new space, but I also want to be over here with my family. I'm in this new space, but, I miss, Texas, where I'm from. It's that liminal space. It's a very, very interesting space. And when students are trying to adapt to the new world of college while staying connected to their old personal worlds. Separation anxiety is another downside that involves some guilt and tension. Students were homesick. They felt, I was helping my mom, now I'm not there. I wish I could be there to help my little sister. All of these things create some tension. Dislocation and relocation, breaking away from high school, transferring from a community college to a four-year college, moving from one state to another, moving from one nation to another. All of those involve separation and relocation. And another thing that students talked about is that sometimes they were treated as cultural outsiders. They were made fun of because of their accents. They were made fun of because of the foods that they cooked in the dorm. They were made fun of because of the way they dressed. Those are what are called microaggressions. They're micro, they're little jabs, but they hurt. They hurt a lot, and they have to put up with some of these microaggressions in college. Financial burden. Most every college student worries about money, and especially if you're poor, especially if your family is depending on you to help them survive. Lack of college readiness. Students felt that high school had not prepared them well for the rigors of college. And some students felt that they had not gotten adequate advising, that sometimes they were placed in the wrong courses or in the wrong academic track. So this basically is a chart that talks about the personal worlds of the students, the family, their friends, the work, their spiritual world, the barrio, their native country. Some of them came from Bolivia, from Puerto Rico, from Mexico, etc. They had strong ties. These are their personal worlds, how they move away from those worlds and relocate in this new world of college. But then they have to deal with all of these issues that I talked about, the microaggressions, the tensions, the feeling like maybe they're not going to make it. Men of color, there's a lot of talk about males kind of disappearing from colleges. There used to be a time when males were the majority of college students. Now it's the opposite. Females are the majority. Females are getting more degrees than men. And so some of the things that matter for men of color are personal connections, this validation piece, high expectations, instructors who show an interest in them, applied learning and validating faculty, and diversity and cultural competence, seeing faculty who look like them and learning from different cultures. So here's a student that we interviewed, and his name is Uriel. And Uriel has a twin brother, and they admire Julian Castro and Joaquin Castro. Julian was the mayor of San Antonio. They're twins. And he wants to be a politician. You know, he wants to, everybody came into the interview in jeans and t-shirts, and he came all dressed up, you know, in his suit and tie, because he's ready to go to Washington. And he may just be the next mayor.
So we have to work to provide for our family. I myself found myself in that situation when I lost my father. You know, thank God that we had my stepfather, but sometimes there was ways where I had to step in as kind of take care of my mother or my brother. And so because of that reason, I think we sort of have to draw away from some of our aspirations or dreams, and we kind of have to place responsibilities and priorities in place. And we do that by saying, well, as much as I would want to go to get a college education, I have to work to provide for my family.
Okay, so we started to ask ourselves, well, what are the assets? What are the strengths that students bring to college? So I want to talk about these assets that we call ventajas, and the knowledge associated with those assets, conocimientos. And we started out by looking at Tara Yoso's community cultural wealth model. She said students bring family capital, social capital, navigational capital, resistant capital, linguistic capital, and aspirational capital to college. So we said, okay, let's see if we can find examples of these different forms of assets in the students that we interviewed. And we did. These strengths of the students have to do with, one, setting high aspirations. They had these dreams, like Uriel and his brother used to talk about how someday they were going to graduate from college. Someday they would be able to help their mother, who was separated from their father. Someday they would become these politicians. Someday they would change the world. They did have these aspirations, and these are some of the strengths that students like you, see if you can identify yourself with some of these strengths that you already have. Another strength with language, linguistic, the ability to speak 2 or more languages. Family. They benefited from the models, their uncles, their grandfather, their grandmother, their fathers, who provided advice, who provided support for them. That's another strength, which is the family. Another strength is social, the ability to form peer networks. Study groups were very important to these students. That's where they all met, studied together, hugged each other, and supported each other. And a lot of validation took place as well. Another strength is navigational. They were able to work through being in that middle liminal space neither here nor there. They worked it through. They were able to move around in different contexts. They were able to separate and to relocate and adapt to the new world, the new culture of college. Resistant capital is another strength. They were able to overcome those microaggressions, those examples of stereotyping and discrimination, and in some cases racism. They were able to overcome the hardships of poverty and the lack of guidance and resources. They were able to do all of this. They had ganas, or perseverance, determination, and strength. I am going to do this, no matter what. That's a great asset. They had what we call ethnic consciousness. They were proud of their heritage. They recognized microaggressions and inequities. They wanted to complete college because they felt that others had paved their way for their success. I was very taken when these students said, you know what, my college degree is not just for me. My college degree is to help my community. My college degree is so I can put something back and make others stronger, so that they too have the opportunities that I have. Spirituality is a big strength. They prayed whenever they needed some guidance. They were able to embrace concepts such as gratitude, goodness, and compassion. They had something we call pluriversal, able to operate in multiple worlds and in diverse educational and geographical contexts. By pluriversal, I mean, they're able to negotiate different things going on in their heads. I was undocumented, and now I'm documented. I'm Mexican, I'm now American. I'm a family member, but I'm a college student. I can speak English, and I can speak Spanish and Portuguese. So lots of stuff going on there in terms of holding different things in a pluriversal way, not in a monocultural way, but in a pluriversal way. I came across this study about African American students, and I thought, wow, they found some of the same things that we found with Latino students. And the strengths that these researchers identified for African American students were, again, family, big strength, aspirations. African American teachers and Black institutions have played major roles in setting the foundation for aspirations, achievement, and success. Parents and teachers communicate the power of dreaming and aspiring. Resistant capital. Students resist inequalities through protests and alternative solutions. Navigational asset. Making the best of limited resources, navigating college and career pathways, navigating contradictions. Social, being connected to the community. It also includes generational connections, as well as specific events such as debutante balls, choral competitions, speech and debate teams, and science fair competitions. Spiritual, another big asset for the African American community. Religious ties, religious institutions and their members influence local schools, politics, and civic participation. I want to give you an example of a student that we interviewed. Her name is Sylvia, and she's a community college transfer student. How many of you students are going to transfer, want to transfer? Okay, great. We got a lot of transfer here. And actually, Sylvia started her education in Mexico and then came to the United States. And she graduated in the top 10% of her high school class. She went to 2 community colleges before enrolling at the University of Texas in San Antonio. She had an Associate of Arts in Math and Physics, and now majoring in Mechanical Engineering. Born in Juarez, previously undocumented, married, no children, first generation, the first to go to college in her family, low income, nobody in her family had gone to college. And so here is Sylvia's journey. Look at the navigation that this young lady did. Look at the different ways, the different things she had to maneuver around. She starts here being born in Juarez, Mexico, and gets her elementary schooling there. Then number 2, she comes to San Antonio and graduates from high school in the top 10% of her class. Number 3, she goes to San Antonio College, which is a community college that I graduated from, and does 1 year of study. But then she leaves Texas and comes all the way over here to Solano Community College and has 3.5 years, gets an Associate of Arts in Math and Physics, and then comes back, number 5, to San Antonio, majoring in mechanical and engineering and chemistry. Now this is a very smart young lady. Academically, really smart, but look at all the maneuvering and the negotiation she needed to do. She speaks English, she speaks Spanish, she was undocumented, she's documented. She lived in Texas, she lived in California, she went to a community college, she's now in a 4-year institution. I mean, that really shows me that this student has tremendous assets that unfortunately counselors and faculty do not recognize. They see students and they don't recognize that they've been through all of these hurdles and overcome so many challenges. And we need to now stop and really understand the student experience in a much better way, because these students do not come as empty vessels. These students have experiences where they learn and they've managed to become survivors, like so many of us in this room.
I'm not sure how to put this feeling, but from going into a high school with the majority was Latinos and speaking a lot of Spanish, even if it was Spanglish, and then going to a community college where going to like calculus classes, all I saw was white males. First, the environment was different because I didn't hear as much Spanish, and just, it was a different feeling. The priorities seem to be different from person to person. Like if you speak to someone who's Latino, they speak a lot about their family and what they want to do later on in life, like how many kids they want to have, how they want their house to look like later on in life. And if you speak to someone who their whole life had school in mind and they just have a whole different culture, they just talk about careers and what their parents did and they got to travel somewhere. So it's just a whole different culture and it's a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it still, because you still have that feeling. College is different, very different. I see it as I have my college life and I have my personal life. As when I'm at school, I'm like in school motion. I know how to speak to people about courses and how to do projects and what I plan to do in the future. I want to go to graduate school, I want to do this and that. When I'm with my parents, there's no school talk other than how you doing and how long it's going to take for you to graduate. I don't think they fully understand what I actually do at school. All they see is that I'm going to school and I've been married, I don't have any kids, how long is that going to take? That's pretty much what I'm getting from my parents. And I just think they just don't know. So it's like two different worlds. I live in multiple worlds. Scared. Because that means if I'm one of the first, I'm pretty much the one setting up the path for the ones that are coming behind me. And that means that whatever decisions I make or whatever path I choose to take, it's not only going to affect me, but it's going to affect everyone who comes behind me, whether it's my sister, my neighbor, or just any female or Latina that's, the next generation. And that's pretty scary, so it's not just me anymore.
So I look at Sylvia and I see so many strengths. Yes, she brought challenges, she had to learn English, etc. But she has so many strengths, so many things, that determination, that drive, that ability to move around different worlds, so many strengths that students bring that I think we need to recognize much more. The third message is that we need a better teaching and learning atmosphere for students. We need one that is holistic. We need one that is intellectually stimulating. We need one that includes deep reflective learning and one that is culturally responsive. Students, am I saying the right thing? Yes. All right. So my book talks about all of these things, sentimental pedagogy, but let me give you a few examples. These are some of the things that are called high-impact practices, things that research has shown really work with students. Learning communities, experiential learning, such as internships that I talked about earlier. Applying learning, this came up big with students. I want to know stuff, but I want to know, how do I use this in the real world? I just don't want to learn the idea, I want to know, how do I apply this? Deep learning experiences that take a semester or more to complete, service learning, capstone courses, research with a faculty member, and what I call contemplative pedagogy. So here are some models that are asset-based. They include Puente, and these are other learning communities, like at the Community College of San Mateo, they have the Umoja project for primarily African American students. Also at the College of San Mateo, they have the MANA project, and that is a word meaning power, and it's for primarily Pacific Islanders. And then I met folks associated with the Ujima project at Pasadena City College, and that's primarily for African American students. So learning communities are really, really good ways to help students to learn. Deep learning experiences, contemplative approaches, use of art and music and poetry, the music that we heard here today, very, very powerful. Community work where social justice themes are highlighted. And this is a tree of the different forms of contemplative practices that is on the website of the Center for Contemplative Mind in Society. But I want to give you a couple of examples of great teaching and learning. One of them is from Professor Alberto Pulido. He teaches at the University of San Diego, and he has what is called the Cajita Project. There was a cajita that somebody was playing earlier. He's got a project he calls the Cajita Project, where students construct their own cajitas. So here's Dr. Pulido talking about that.
So this box here was done by a student named Laura Rendon, and the title is in the top sheet. I usually ask students to write like a narrative, which the students here today did a great job in. And it's called My Life as a Mestiza, and the little that I know about it, the discussions that we had about it, was that she considers herself part Chicana and part Apache. And so when you look at the imagery in terms of the symbols, you see some of the traditional symbols that you would see in terms of being Mexicana, Chicana, and national crosses. But then you see some of the Native American influences. And she does all these different symbols around here. You can see Christian symbols, Native American symbols. Up on top, which you can't get access to, there's an actual field, agricultural field. There's an eagle that's been carved in. There's a forest. There's some Native American symbols as well. And I think it just captures what the students were talking about in terms of those dualities and living in those multiple worlds.
So I took this idea of the Cajitas project, and I had my students construct their own cajitas, and they can be in any form. Like this student from India used this suitcase as his cajita. The suitcase is the suitcase that his family used to come to the United States from India. It's an old suitcase, and he was going to throw it away. His mother stopped him and said, that has all of the memories and all of the things that we had when we moved from India to relocate to the United States. This young lady, Alicia, her grandmother is from Liberia, and her cajita is this wraparound shawl that she has. And she told me the story of in Liberia, they were having a civil war in the 90s, and the soldiers would come into the villages, and the women had to be ready to leave right away, and so they had all of these belongings packed in this shawl. And as a memory and as a tribute to her grandmother, this was her cajita. I was at the New Americans Museum in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. 50 artists were selected and given a wooden box and a small budget and asked to conceptualize a suitcase based on experiences with immigration themes. And that exhibition is called Maletas Migrantes. So this is the box that they were given, and they said, you know, think about the immigrant experience. How would you construct this box? And so here's some of the examples. This is, what would you say to a migrant? These are letters that were written to those young kids who came from Guatemala and Honduras escaping violence. And they board this train, and they're on top of the train. They're not inside the train. They ride the train through rain and, you know, harsh weather. You know, children can get beaten up. You know, children can be raped, whatever. But they do that to escape the violence and the horrible conditions in Central America. And they ride this train they call La Bestia, the beast. And so these letters were written to these little kids who ride La Bestia. And they're in this box. This is what one artist did. And I want to now give you another example from one of my mentors, Dr. J. Herman Blake. Dr. Blake is actually the biographer of the Black Panthers. He is now retired, but he talked to me at what some of the things that he does in his African American Studies class with students. And so here is Dr. Herman Blake.
I use in the class some of my own material, my own research. I have them listen to, for example, when I talk about slavery, I have them listen to an interview done in 1968 with a woman whose mother was a breeder. And it was her mother's job to have babies. And this woman talks. She was a 15th child of this woman, born just after peace declared, as she put it. She was, I think, 94, 98, something like this. And I have a picture of her, which I show on the transcript. I want to tell you, you can't hear that and walk away without thinking. When I get to talking about terrorism and violence, I use about 6 or 7 slides from that book, Without Sanctuary. And I raise 2 questions. Why do they lynch people? And then I show the pictures of the crowd who came to enjoy the spectacle, including little children. And one student wrote an essay saying this course is not only about learning, this course is about thinking. And you think all the time. I use music because the music was used by the people to illustrate these points. So when we hear this woman whose mother was a breeder, I play for them the spiritual. Lord, how come me? I wish I never was. When they see those slides about how people have been misused and mistreated, I'd have them listen to Nina Simone singing Strange Fruit. I just gave a lecture on the Civil Rights Movement, and at the beginning of the 20th century, I had them listen to spiritual, Lord, I couldn't hear nobody pray, talking about the loneliness.
That's Dr. Blake, who is a phenomenal person and one of my great mentors. I've learned a lot from him and truly respect what he does in the classroom. The use of music, the use of photographs, the use of quiet times for students to reflect on what they're learning. It's not just about learning what's in the book, but reflecting about what's in their hearts, what's in their minds. What is the deeper meaning of what is being learned in the classroom? And that's the kind of teaching and learning that I think that we need to have more of in higher education. And those are just two examples of what I mean by that. So in the end, I think that we need to create a new way of working with students. We need to get away from deficit-based thinking and move toward asset-based thinking. We need to validate students. And we need to have a teaching and learning experience that is deep, that is meaningful, where students can see that they can apply what they are learning, where students can be actively engaged in what they're learning. And so provide validation, asset-based framework is needed, and a high-impact classroom pedagogy. That is the new pedagogic imaginary to deepen inquiry, meaning, and purpose. Sometimes there are no clear answers as we move toward creating this new vision of education. But the answers will come as we walk the path to find the answers. I'm very heartened that so many students are here to hear this message, because I know that you're the ones that are going to carry the torch, and you're going to come back and become teachers and leaders in your communities. And I hope that you will make the difference that so many of us want you to really move forward with your lives and to become so successful. I moved out of poverty, and here I am addressing a group such as you. So many people helped me along the way, so many challenges that I had to face and confront and move away from. But I'm very blessed with so many things that have come my way as a result of the struggle. As a result of the struggle, I now see things with open eyes, and I now am here to share my knowledge with you. Thank you and good luck on your journey. And I'm here to tell you, si se puede, you can do this. Move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Rendon, for bringing this message to us and paving the way, and also connecting the different communities that are underserved and looking at other research to compare and contrast and to make that connection come alive. At this time, we would like to have a short Q&A with Dr. Rendon before we shift her out. We also wanted to acknowledge that we have some of our colleagues from our sister colleges. We also have President Budd here from Berkeley City College, one of her deans who is in attendance. So we're very grateful because, in Peralta, we try to share the wealth, and this is one of the opportunities. So this would be a time, if you have questions, I will be passing around the mic. Are there questions?
Hello, Lala. My name is Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary.
How are you? I wanted to know when you decided, or how you decided to initiate your college career, and about how old were you and how long it took for you to realize that that's what you wanted to do.
Oh, I had dreams of being a teacher since I was a little girl. I had dreams of being a teacher. I just didn't know how to do it. And the most important decision, one of the most important decisions, if not the most important decision in my life, I made in the 8th grade. And in that day, a college counselor came and said, okay, you guys are going to high school. You need to select whether you want to be on a vocational track or an academic track. And I didn't know the difference. So I raised my hand and I said, what's the difference? See, the vocational track, after you graduate, you're going to go straight into a job. Academic track, you graduate from high school, you're going to go to college. And so for me, I said, okay, academic track. And I went home, and my mother had just come home from work. She was a waitress, making $15 a week at a restaurant. And I told her, I'm going to college. And her response was, "Estás loca? Who do you think you are? That's not for us, that's for rich people." And so I was kind of discouraged about that. But I held on to my dream. And I have to tell you that when I finished every degree, from bachelor's degree to the doctorate, my mom always, especially when I graduated with a doctorate, mi hija es doctora. And so they were very proud. So I that's part of the story about how I got there.
Hello, my name is Gabby. I am part of the Poison Program here at Merritt. And my question for you is, now that we all know that you are a community college role model, how long did it take for you to transfer out and earn your degrees?
I worked really hard to graduate in 4 years, and I did. So it wasn't that easy because in those days, there were only so many courses I could take at Laredo Community College. And I had to transfer to San Antonio College for a semester to finish an Associate of Arts degree. And by the way, when I got back to Texas in 2012, San Antonio College folks heard about me because they had read some of my work. And of course, I'm a lot older now. And so they gave me an award as Outstanding Alumni. And I was able to address the graduating class of 2012 at SAC. Even though I was only there a semester, I do have an Associate of Arts from San Antonio College, and then I transferred from there to the University of Houston and got my my BA 2 years later. So I was able to do everything in 4 years. But I had to work at it. There are national conferences that provide workshops for faculty and staff. I just did one for a big organization located in Washington, D.C. We did a workshop where I talked about all this stuff. And it was packed with people from all over the nation who want to do a better job working with students. I do the Student Success Institute for the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Ed, and that's always packed as well. There's a lot, not only for Latinos, but for African Americans as well, and Asians. There are different things that go on. You're not a part of that crowd because you're a student, but trust me, there are.
Hello, Dr. Rendon. My name is Daniela. I'm also a faculty at Merritt. My question for you is, why did you choose to get your PhD in administrative education?
I chose to get my PhD in higher ed because I love college and university work, and I wanted to work with students, and I wanted to make a difference for students who grew up like me with hopes and dreams, but not knowing how to realize them. And I knew that I could be listened to much more with a doctorate than not having a doctorate. And it worked. And going to the University of Michigan opened a lot of doors for me. That's one of the top universities in the country. And so I met a lot of people there, and I just kept going. I kept going with my work. I'm about to retire this year. I was telling some folks here, although some people don't believe it, because I have so many things going on. But as you think about retirement, and it's an emotional time because everywhere I go, I meet people who tell me, I've read your work and it's meant so much to me. So I feel like back in the 80s when I was just starting to get a doctorate, and now in 2015, that I accomplished my goal. That I can leave this world knowing that I made a difference.